Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge. My guest today is Rick Meekins, Managing Partner at Aepiphanni Business Consulting and host of the Relentless Pursuit of Winning podcast. Rick helps founders build companies that don't just grow, they endure. With over 2 decades leading businesses through complex growth challenges, Rick's known for helping leaders align vision with execution and scale sustainably. In this episode, we'll explore how so many founders get stuck in reactive growth cycles, how to engineer systems that turn vision into execution, and what it takes to build a business that wins, not just for today, but for the long term. If you're a founder chasing growth but craving stability, this one's for you. Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you, Reed. I really appreciate it.
I'm so glad to have you. So tell us a little bit about your path. How did you come into this role specifically where you're strategizing with companies? How did you get here?
You know, I was always one of those people that was like a business guy. I was always tinkering stuff. I've got one of those engineer brains. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be in business. I didn't know what consulting was at the time or whatever, but I just wanted to do that. And I was always like helping my friends. And so it's like, I was kind of born with it, if you will.
Oh, cool.
But one of the big impetus for me is that I used to have a restaurant up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It was called Petro's Cafe and Coffee Bar. I did everything in that restaurant to make it stand out. We didn't have Wi-Fi back then, if you remember. We had internet capabilities, access at that restaurant. We had Tuesday nights, we had the place packed out with jazz and spoken word. We had a menu. Everybody was doing like Japanese fusion cuisine. We're doing African Caribbean fusion cuisine. I mean, it was like anytime there was a chance to zig, everybody else was zagging. We took the opportunity to zig. And it was a great experience. It was a great learning experience, obviously, but it was a great experience just always trying to push the limits. The thing about small towns, relatively small towns, is the Chamber of Commerce is really big, and I got involved in it. And so what was happening is a lot of people that were in the chamber started joining or started hanging out at the restaurant, which was absolutely fine. But, you know, I start hearing the same theme over and over. It's like, I've got my business. I've been doing it for 5 years, 10 years. It's just me, or it's just me and one other person, and I can't do anything with the company. You know, I'm sitting here, I've got 20 employees, I've got on-site catering, off-site catering, banquet facilities, and I'm like, you know, doing the thing. And it's just like, you know, I could see that I could see things differently than perhaps some of the other business owners were. One of the things that's always important to me is for people to have, you know, a level of sustainability. It's like, hey, you know what? I know that I at least have a business that's built well that can generate revenue. And so I decided to take my skills and help other people with that. And that's when I moved to Atlanta in 2004. And I've been working with companies, you know, pretty much in that way since about then.
Okay. Do you tell us what kind of industries you work with? And so now I'm assuming you don't work just with restaurants. Are there some principles that apply across industries that you go back to that you find are pretty essential for any kind of business?
I mean, if you think about business operations is like an engine, okay? You put an engine in every vehicle that's going to run. And so what we're doing is we're thinking about operations in terms of principles. We've got to have a product or service that we're offering. We have to have a team. We have to have people, leadership, management, et cetera. We have to have a way to get more business. We have to manage our finances. This is going to be across every single business that we work with. And so what my job is to go into a company and understand how the business works, understand where the potential gaps are. And my job is really to get in there and really tune that engine, make that engine run really, really well. Now, I'm not looking 3, 4, 5 years down the road and saying, hey, what is that engine going to need in order for that car to perform at its best? If we look at things in terms of where we are right now, we can't get past it. Sometimes we can't get past that because we almost create an obstacle for ourselves. It's like, hey, we got training wheels. Those training wheels don't come off. The company can't grow. We've got to put things into place, thinking down the road. What do we need to have in that future business? What do we need to put in place right now for that future business to be successful?
Yeah, I love a metaphor. I think it does really help you visualize what a business needs. And I think that's a good way to teach. But I am curious, so do you work with restaurants? What other kinds of businesses do you work with? And have you worked with any unusual ones that would surprise us maybe?
Well, I generally work with service-based businesses
Oh,
and service-based, I look at professional services, construction.
no.
I've done some real estate. I just recalled the answer to your question. Real estate, property management. We've done a little bit of healthcare work. Have done light manufacturing. Have done software. Have done, a lot of different industries. And I've really enjoyed, the thing I enjoy about it is it's just so diverse. I've worked for B2B, have worked B2C, and again, it's really implementing the same sorts of, looking at the same principles and then implementing them into the companies that we serve. The most interesting, I think, was a company hired us to, they had a patent on an item that they were selling, and the patent was running out. And they hired us to hire an engineer to create the new version of the product that they were selling.
Oh,
So
wow.
we're suddenly in that space. At the same time, they were also in property management, and they were, flipping houses. And it's like, okay, we need investment and stuff like that. So, I mean, this company just turned into like all these other projects.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely fantastic. It was just like, hey, dude, we're building houses now.
That's awesome.
Didn't see
Yeah.
that coming. And we're working towards a manufacturing. And, I mean, I've done that a couple of times for companies, but it's different. It's interesting. The key for me a lot of times is being able to bring in the subject matter experts. I don't know everything. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But,
Yeah.
if I bring in an engineer, or if I bring in a project manager or whatever that is, we can make sure that we still put the same principles in place.
Yeah. It sounds like you're like me. I run an agency and I really enjoy getting into a new niche business and learning some of the unique things that they do. And so often I'm discovering like, this is like a legit business. I had no idea you could make a business out of this thing. And like, for instance, I've recently started working with a pool cleaning company, and just the complexity of it is, I'm getting up to speed on it, but it is so fascinating and so many opportunities. I bet you really enjoy that as well, getting into the weeds.
Oh, yeah. I
So,
like to stay there. I like to understand what's going on. I like to know what kind of fertilizer we need to put in there. But, my job, it's really important for me in my job to really be able to provide that oversight, that navigational support. It's like, okay, you want to go in this direction. These are the things that we need to watch out for. These are the situations that are going to create potential obstacles for us. And so that's really where my role needs to stay.
yeah. Okay. So one other thing that comes to mind is stages of business. I'm sure when you're dealing with a startup, you're helping them get off the ground, install the engine, so to speak, versus an engine that might be choking and sputtering, like an established business that's maybe plateaued or started to decline. How do you treat those differently? Or are they essentially the same operation from your perspective? Do the same principles apply? Do you approach it any differently?
I wish there was a simple answer for that. I
Yeah.
mean, every company, every business is made up of people. As you know, people come to the table with different talents. So if I'm working with a startup, I really have to understand where that founder's mindset is. Are they more the visionary? Are they more the salesperson? Are they more kind of that tactical, okay, let's do the same thing over and over again and make sure that we're selling blinds, for
Yeah.
example? You know what I'm saying? And so in understanding where they are and understanding their operational limitations, I can start to build from that perspective. A lot of times it's a conversation around, okay, how do we differentiate? How do we implement these things into the company? How do we create a stable business development program, et cetera, et cetera? When you're looking at a more mature company, we have a track record, we have history, we have customers, et cetera, and we have habits. And that's the hardest thing sometimes. If we've got a staff and the staff is used to doing things a certain way for a number of years, and I'm coming in and say, you know what, this has been really great, but you could save some time, you could save some steps, we can implement this technology, this is a different way that we could go to market, et cetera, et cetera. Turning that boat is a little bit harder. They're not nearly as agile. There's usually a lot more moving parts to this. And then, of course, we have the customer end of things. We never want to make change in the company so it disrupts our customers. If people get upset or, whatever it is, suddenly customer service isn't there, or sales isn't there, or whatever it is, that's a problem. So we have to make incremental changes. The thing about startups is a lot of times we can go and we can pivot and just kind of like with a more mature company, it's much, much harder, much more complex to do.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like your personnel are pretty key to your approach and having the right people. When you come into a business where you have groups that are filled with qualified people that are working hard within their lane, they're working well, but maybe there's not a lot of synergy between, say, sales and marketing or operations and sales and marketing. How do you better align them? Do you sit them down? Is this a like outlining process? Is it individual relationship coaching? How do you typically tackle that?
You know what? A lot of times I'm going to diagnose the problem. I've got other people, other coaches and that sort of thing that I work with that would come and do the real team dynamics, the real one-on-one. And I've done that. We had a company that we were growing. I think they started at about 6 or 7 people. They ended up with about 30 people.
Okay.
And we brought in, someone to assist with change management, and, we developed but we developed assessments and, management coaching and training and leadership development and that sort of thing. That was their lane. I'm going to always be that systems guy. I'm going to say, how do things need to work in this company for this company to be successful? So I'm always going to put the tools in place.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing you brought up earlier that I wanted to drill into a little bit is the difference between vision and execution. We've mentioned that founders come in with a vision, and are they the visionary? Are they the person that does the execution? Are you able to help them bridge the two? So say you've got your visionary founder. Are you able to help them become more able to execute? And conversely, a lot of people that are good at executing, they don't necessarily think big. They think about like day to day and getting through the day's tasks. Can you help them have a bigger vision? Is that something you work with founders?
That's the visionary part of it is probably one of the most important parts of it. A bad example would be I go and I work with a company and I come up with the vision for where the company can go. Leadership's not bought into it. Team's not bought into it. It turns into a bad engagement. We don't do that. What I do most of the time is I'll work with a founder and understand the vision. And I'm very good at taking that vision and turning that into something that would be tactical. I'm going to say, okay, what is the greatest opportunity with this vision that you had? So I had a tax accounting firm that I was working with. And, he's telling me about his vision for the way that he wants his firm to run. And so my question to him is, why can't we partner with other tax accounting firms and take your brand and put that, you know what I'm saying? So we're building these partnerships. We're building a network of firms, and suddenly it's just like, oh wow, I had never thought of that. Perhaps a simple example, but this is the type of thinking that enables companies to be sustainable. So in a one-unit shop with one CPA, there's no fallback. If someone gets sick or something like that, and that's always what I'm thinking. If someone gets sick, something like that, or we want to sell the company with only one CPA in the firm, the company doesn't have a lot of value. The company's in a very risky position. But if we build the company from the perspective of, hey, let's build something that's sustainable, let's make your vision very feasible for the future of the company, then we have something that's going to have a lot more value. So a lot of times, this is where I'm going to focus a lot of my energy with my clients. It's like, how do we create that strategic advantage in your company that's going to allow your company to have longevity, have value, so that if you want to sell it or whatever you want to do with it, you have legs to be able to do that. On the other end of that, you talked about people that are really good at execution. And I think that the great thing about people that are really good at execution is they're really good at execution. So what I can do is I can create that roadmap for them. I say, okay, we need to do this, then this, then this. These are our priorities. If they understand the priorities, if they understand the criteria for quality, if they understand that we do things in an incremental approach rather than trying to do everything all at once so we can understand how things are working together, it's a great partnership. It's an absolutely great partnership. And I've seen, both ends of that spectrum, and, we've made things work really, really well for those companies.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really important. And I'm glad that you can be that resource. Now, we met initially around your podcast, actually, and I'd love to talk to you about that. My first question is, what motivated you to start a podcast, and how does it help your business overall? I'm interested in this topic because I started this podcast to help my marketing agency, and I've actually found some unique benefits that I didn't expect. But I'd love to hear what your experience has been.
For sure, for sure. So we started the podcast. First podcast that we did, we started about 5 years ago. I used to have a marketing company called Converge Marketing. And so we built that podcast and we didn't really know what we were doing. We figured it out. We made it happen. We did 30 episodes, had a co-host, and it was a decent show. And it enabled us to meet people. We actually ended up running, I think, 2 or 3 podcasts for some of our clients, which wasn't something that we'd expected to be able to do, but it was something that we were able to do. And we did a really, really good job with those and enjoyed that process. After COVID, we had just some devastating losses around COVID. A lot of our companies were in service-based businesses. They're going down. And so we went from a team of about 30 people down to about 5 people. And so, we dealt with that. And eventually I stopped doing that podcast, but I was always interested in creating something that was really going to be motivational, for clients. So if I look at myself, my vision, my mission to educate, equip, and inspire people to pursue extraordinary goals. And so this is where the name for that podcast came from. And with the understanding that running companies is hard, being an entrepreneur is hard, I wanted to be able to pour into people and get other people's perspectives. So you get the people that were, super wealthy and that sort of thing. And they had the crash and burn, just like, oh, I poured everything into my company. It affected my health, my marriage, da 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 da. I hear those stories, but I hear them coming back. They have the epiphany moments. It's like, what? Life is more important than money. Life is more important than being successful in business. And so I get to share those stories with the other entrepreneurs out there, which I find to be really exciting. So, there's that piece of it. I found personally, it's very important for me to create a platform for my guests. It's incredibly important for me to create, a source of inspiration, a safe space, so to speak, for entrepreneurs in the business. So from a business perspective, this is, that's what's important to me. That's the goal for me. That's the return on investment. Happy people is a return on investment for me. Now, those other pieces to that is that the great thing about podcasting is I have a lot of one-on-one relationships with a lot of people. I meet people every single week that are going to be on the show at some point. And, sometimes we have an opportunity to do business. Sometimes there's great synergies. Sometimes, you never know what it's going to go. But the important thing is to value the people that are coming on the show. I think anyone that's a podcaster that has transactional relationships with the people on their show are really not valuing their own capabilities.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I've really enjoyed getting to know interesting people, yourself included, Rick, through this podcasting exercise. You are such an enthusiastic, positive, inspirational person. Where does that come from? Where does all that positive energy come from?
I think it's that same thing where I work really hard. I've built a lot of different things, and
Yeah.
it all came back to at some point that people were most important. And I enjoy everywhere I go, I'm just enjoying people. I go to the gym and I'm the greeter. I say hi to everybody. I give everybody pounds and stuff like that. I'm finding that at church, people are just looking out for me. It's like, hey, Rick, da, da, da. And so I'm really taking that and I'm giving that back just authentically. It's not work for me. It's just something that I'm naturally doing, I guess.
That is so cool. And I wish there were more people like you, Rick, and doing good things for a lot of businesses, even directly and through your podcast. And that's fantastic. Now, if somebody would like to work with you, tune into your podcast, where are the places that you can be found?
Okay, the easiest way to get to my website, if you go to bigscary.vision, it's a brand new domain, but I absolutely love it. Bigscary.vision. The idea behind that is I want people to create and pursue visions that are really going to push the envelope. It's like, how do we really create differentiation in our business, in our market, in our industry? So bigscary.vision is that domain. If you go to bigscaryvision.com, you're still going to get there. I know how it goes. So that's that. If you want to check out my podcast, go to RPOW podcast.com. That's RPOW podcast.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. You can look me up, just Rick Meekins. I'm always happy to connect, always happy to have a conversation. And you can absolutely apply to be a guest on the show at rpowpodcast.com.
That's so awesome. Rick, it's so nice to talk to you and hear your story and your approach. I think we had a lot of great takeaways, and I hope people will connect with you if they really want to build that vision. So
I
thanks
love
for
that.
coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.